Let me talk to the woman who's tired of guessing, tired of waiting, and tired of loving with more effort than she receives in return. This is for the woman who's been strong for too long. The one who keeps telling herself to be patient, to be understanding, to give in when her heart has been quietly asking for honesty. You've felt the silence. You've noticed the mixed signals. You've questioned whether you're asking for too much when all you really want is consistency, clarity, and effort. Here's the truth no one says out loud. When a man is serious about you, you don't have to wonder. Seriousness doesn't hide behind excuses. It doesn't show up halfway. It doesn't come and go depending on mood or convenience. It shows itself clearly, repeatedly, and without confusion. This isn't about blaming men. This is about freeing women from emotional limbo. It's about learning the difference between potential and reality, between attention and intention, between words and action. Today, we're not romanticizing struggle. We're not justifying bare minimum behavior. We're calling out the patterns that keep you stuck and replacing them with truth that brings clarity. Because once you know what seriousness looks like, you stop accepting anything less. And that's when everything changes. He stops playing games. Because losing you feels too expensive. Let me say this slowly. Because this is where most women start doubting themselves instead of questioning the situation. When a man is serious about you, the games end. Not gradually. They end because the risk becomes real. The moment a man realizes that losing you would actually cost him something, emotionally, mentally, physically, his behavior shifts. And it's not subtle. You feel it. The anxiety you used to carry in your chest starts to loosen. The constant wondering starts to fade. The silence that once felt loud suddenly disappears. See, games only exist when the stakes are low. A man plays games when he believes you'll stay no matter what he does. He delays replies because he assumes you'll wait. He goes quiet because he thinks you'll fill in the gaps. He keeps things undefined because clarity would force responsibility. And responsibility is something a man avoids when he's unsure about keeping you. But when a man becomes serious, something changes inside him. He stops testing your patience because patience is no longer guaranteed. He stops pulling back to see if you'll chase because chasing risks pushing you away. He stops acting detached because detachment now feels dangerous. Losing you doesn't feel like an option anymore. It feels like a mistake he couldn't recover from. And that's the truth most people don't tell you. Men don't stop playing because you ask them to. They stop playing because the consequences finally register. If you've ever noticed how he suddenly became more attentive after you stopped over-explaining, stopped chasing, or stopped begging for clarity, that wasn't coincidence, that was fear. Not unhealthy fear, but awareness. Awareness that you are not as available as he assumed. Awareness that you could actually walk away. Awareness that access to you is not automatic. A serious man doesn't want to see how things go. He knows how things go when he doesn't step up, they end. So instead of risking that outcome, he becomes direct. He communicates. He checks in. He follows through. Not because he suddenly learned how to love, but because he finally understood what it would cost him not to. Confusion is not a relationship phase. Confusion is a warning sign. When a man is serious, you are not confused about where you stand. You might not have everything figured out, but you know he's not playing with you. You know he's not entertaining multiple options. You know he's not leaving you emotionally hanging. Seriousness removes guesswork. And if you're sitting there thinking, but he says he cares, he just moves slow. Understand this, men don't move slow toward what they truly value. They move carefully, yes, but carefully still means forward. Slowly often means undecided. Slowly often means he's keeping his options open. Slowly often means he likes you, but not enough to risk losing control. A man who is serious loses the need for control. He doesn't manipulate with distance. He doesn't create insecurity to feel powerful. He doesn't keep you on edge to maintain the upper hand. Why? Because control risks loss. and loss now feels too expensive. That's why you'll notice he stops doing things that could push you away. He stops disappearing for days. He stops giving half answers. He stops leaving emotional doors open for other people. Not because he became perfect, but because he became intentional. And let me be very clear about this part. If you have to constantly ask for reassurance, he's not serious. Reassurance should come from behavior, not begging. A serious man reassures you without realizing he's doing it. Through consistency, clarity, and presence. The reason this hurts to hear is because many women stay too long hoping a man will eventually stop playing. But the truth is, games don't end with time, they end with value. When a man values you deeply, he doesn't risk you casually. So if you're still experiencing hot and cold behavior, mixed signals, sudden silence, and emotional whiplash, that's not because you're difficult to love. It's because he doesn't yet feel the weight of losing you. And here's the hardest truth of all. The moment you stop tolerating games is often the moment he realizes the price. Not because you threatened to leave, not because you demanded change, but because you quietly showed that your presence is not guaranteed. When losing you feels too expensive, games stop naturally, not out of fear of punishment, but out of respect for what he stands to lose. He shows up consistently, not just when it's convenient. This is where seriousness stops being something a man says and starts being something he proves. Because consistency is not about grand gestures, long speeches, or perfectly worded messages. Consistency is about presence that doesn't disappear when life gets busy, moods change, or effort is required. When a man is serious about you, you don't have to wonder when you'll hear from him next. You don't have to brace yourself for silence. You don't have to check your phone with anxiety. His presence becomes something you can rely on. Inconsistent men show up when it suits them, when they're lonely, when they want validation, when they need comfort. But when they're stressed, distracted, or no longer in the mood, they vanish. That kind of presence creates emotional instability. And instability slowly erodes your sense of self. You start adjusting your expectations downward just to avoid disappointment. You start telling yourself not to care so much. You start shrinking your needs to fit the gaps he leaves behind. A serious man does the opposite. He shows up even when it's inconvenient, even when he's tired, even when life is heavy, because seriousness doesn't disappear under pressure. It becomes more visible. When a man values you, your place in his life doesn't depend on his mood. It's not negotiable. It's not optional. It's built into his routine, his thinking, and his decisions. Consistency is not about perfection. He may still make mistakes. He may still have bad days. But the difference is that you don't feel abandoned in those moments. He communicates. He lets you know where he is emotionally and mentally. He doesn't leave you filling in the blanks with fear. Silence becomes explanation, not punishment. And let's be honest about something most women feel, but don't say out loud. Inconsistency creates addiction. The highs feel higher because the lows are so low. The rare moments of attention feel special because they're unpredictable. And over time, you mistake emotional unpredictability for passion. But that's not chemistry, that's anxiety. A man who is serious doesn't build attraction through absence. He builds it through reliability. You don't have to earn his presence. You don't have to perform for it. You don't have to wonder what version of him you're going to get today. He shows up as himself consistently because he understands that love cannot grow in unstable ground. If you're always the one initiating, always the one checking in, always the one bridging the gap, that's not effort. That's imbalance. A serious man meets you in the middle without being asked. He notices when you pull back. He feels the distance. And instead of ignoring it, he closes it. This is where many women get confused. They say, but he comes back. Coming back is not consistency. Anyone can reappear. Consistency is staying. Consistency is not disappearing in the first place. A serious man doesn't keep resetting the connection. He builds on it. And if you've ever excused his absence by saying he's busy, Understand this clearly. Everyone is busy. Busy is not the issue. Priority is. People make time for what matters, not by squeezing it in, but by reorganizing. A serious man doesn't fit you into his life when it's convenient. He adjusts his life to include you. The moment a man is serious, your presence becomes part of his normal, not a special event. You are not a reward for good behavior or distraction from stress. You are a constant, and that constancy brings peace. You stop overthinking. You stop doubting yourself. You stop feeling like you're asking for too much when all you're asking for is basic effort. If consistency feels rare, it's because you've been taught to accept less. But consistency is not too much to ask for. It's the bare minimum of seriousness. When a man shows up consistently, he's telling you without words that you matter, not just when it's easy, but when it actually counts. He claims you even when no one is watching. This is where seriousness becomes undeniable, because claiming you has nothing to do with performance and everything to do with intention. When a man is serious about you, he doesn't wait for an audience to treat you like you matter. He doesn't need witnesses to validate his commitment. He claims you in private first, in the way he speaks about you, the way he includes you in his decisions, and the way he protects your place in his life, even when there's nothing to gain. A man who isn't serious only claims you when it benefits him. Around friends, around people he wants to impress, or in moments where being associated with you raises his image. But when the room is empty, when the excitement fades, when effort is required without applause, his behavior changes. That's the difference between attention and commitment. Attention needs eyes. Commitment stands on principle. Claiming you doesn't mean controlling you. It means acknowledging you. It means he doesn't treat the relationship like a temporary arrangement or an undefined situation he can step in and out of whenever he wants. A serious man is clear about where you stand even when no one is asking. He doesn't dodge questions. He doesn't blur lines. He doesn't hide behind ambiguity to avoid responsibility. You can feel when a man claims you. There's a sense of security that settles in your body. You're not scanning for signs anymore. You're not wondering if you're asking for too much. You're not worried about being replaced the moment you're not around. His actions create reassurance without needing explanation. A man who claims you doesn't keep his options emotionally open. He doesn't leave doors unlocked for attention from other people. He doesn't entertain situations that would make you question your place. Not because he's afraid of getting caught, but because he values what he has. He understands that loyalty is not just about physical boundaries. It's about emotional ones too. And let's talk about the silence that happens when you're not there. When a man is serious, he doesn't change who he is when you're not watching. He speaks about you with respect. He defends your name when you're not in the room. He doesn't minimize you to seem available. He doesn't pretend you're less important than you are just to keep his freedom intact. A man who refuses to claim you often says things like, or I don't like labels, or I don't want pressure. But privacy and secrecy are not the same thing. Privacy protects the relationship. Secrecy protects the individual from accountability. A serious man doesn't fear accountability because accountability comes with intention. Claiming you also shows up in inclusion. He includes you in conversations about his life. He includes you in plans that matter. He includes you in his world instead of keeping you on the outside, waiting for permission to belong. You're not an afterthought. You're not a convenience. You're considered. And here's a truth that hurts but frees you. If a man is truly serious, you don't have to convince him to claim you. You don't have to hint. You don't have to push. You don't have to negotiate your visibility. Claiming you feels natural to him because he's already decided where you stand. A man who is serious doesn't fear losing options. He fears losing you. So he moves in a way that secures the connection instead of risking it. He aligns his words, actions, and energy because misalignment creates cracks, and cracks lead to loss. When a man claims you even when no one is watching, he's showing you that his commitment is rooted in character, not performance. And character doesn't disappear when the lights go off. He listens. And then he changes. This is where seriousness separates itself from sweet words and empty apologies. Because listening is easy. Nodding is easy. Saying, I understand is easy. But change costs effort, humility, and consistency. And when a man is serious about you, he doesn't just hear your pain. He responds to it with action. A man who is not serious listens to reply. A man who is serious listens to understand. There's a difference, and you can feel it immediately. When he's not serious, conversations go in circles. You explain the same hurt again and again, using different words, softer tones, clearer examples, and nothing shifts. You start wondering if you're explaining it wrong, if you're asking for too much, if you're being dramatic. But when a man is serious, you don't have to repeat yourself to be respected. Seriousness shows up when your words stay with him after the conversation ends. He remembers what you said when you were emotional. He remembers what shut you down. He remembers what made you pull away. And more importantly, he doesn't dismiss those things as small. He understands that small wounds repeated over time become reasons people leave. A man who is serious doesn't say, that's just how I am, as a defense. He understands that staying the same while hurting you is not authenticity, it's avoidance. He doesn't protect his habits at the cost of your emotional safety. He doesn't prioritize his comfort over your well-being. He recognizes that love requires adjustment, not dominance. When a man listens and changes, it's not loud. It's subtle but powerful. You notice that the thing you used to argue about doesn't happen anymore. You notice that the behavior that made you anxious suddenly stops. You notice that you feel calmer around him, not because you lowered your standards, but because he raised his awareness. And let's be clear, change doesn't mean perfection. A serious man may still mess up. He may still have moments where he reacts poorly, but the difference is accountability. He doesn't get defensive. He doesn't twist the situation to make you feel guilty for speaking up. He doesn't minimize your experience to protect his ego. He takes responsibility without being forced into it. A man who isn't serious hears your pain as criticism. A man who is serious hears your pain as information. Information on how to love you better. Information on how not to lose you. If you find yourself constantly explaining why something hurt you, that's not communication, that's emotional labor. And emotional labor becomes exhausting when it's one-sided. A serious man doesn't make you teach him empathy over and over. He learns because he cares. One of the clearest signs a man is not serious is when he keeps hurting you in the exact same way and then apologizes for it repeatedly. That's not growth. That's a cycle. Apologies without change are just tools to keep you around longer. A serious man breaks patterns. He doesn't wait until you're at your breaking point. He doesn't need an ultimatum to adjust. He doesn't need to see you cry for the 10th time to take you seriously. He pays attention early because he understands that unresolved pain becomes distance, and distance becomes endings. And here's the truth many women need to hear. If he wanted to change, he would. Not overnight, not perfectly, but noticeably. Effort always leaves evidence. Growth always leaves signs. When a man is serious, you don't have to look for proof. You feel it in the way your guard slowly comes down. Listening without change keeps you stuck. Listening with change moves the relationship forward. And when a man listens and then changes, he's telling you something powerful without saying a word. That keeping you matters more than staying the same. He protects your peace, not his ego. This is where emotional maturity shows itself, because protecting your peace requires a man to step outside of himself. It requires him to value the relationship more than being right, more than winning arguments, more than feeding his pride. When a man is serious about you, he doesn't see your emotions as a threat to his authority. He sees them as something precious that deserves care. A man who isn't serious reacts from ego. He needs to dominate conversations. He needs to have the last word. He needs to feel powerful, even if that power comes from making you feel small. He dismisses your feelings with phrases like, "You're overreacting," or "It's not that deep," because acknowledging your pain would mean acknowledging his impact. And his ego can't handle that. A serious man is different. He understands that protecting your peace is not about avoiding conflict, but about how conflict is handled. He doesn't raise his voice to feel and control. He doesn't shut down to punish you. He doesn't disappear to make you anxious. He knows that silence used as a weapon creates distance, not resolution. When a man is serious, he doesn't argue to win. He listens to understand. Even when he disagrees, he stays present. Even when emotions run high, he doesn't turn the situation into a power struggle. He understands that if you feel unsafe expressing yourself, the connection slowly dies. Protecting your peace also means he doesn't create unnecessary chaos in your life. He doesn't flirt with other people to get a reaction. He doesn't provoke jealousy to boost his confidence. He doesn't bring instability into the relationship and then blame you for reacting to it. He understands that peace is not boring. It's grounded. A man who is serious knows that love should calm your nervous system, not constantly activate it. You should feel safe to speak, safe to rest, safe to be yourself. If you constantly feel like you're walking on eggshells, measuring your words, or suppressing your emotions to avoid conflict, that's not love, that's survival. Ego-driven men see compromise as weakness. Serious men see compromise as investment. They don't view adjusting as losing themselves. They view it as strengthening the bond. They don't protect their pride at the expense of your well-being. When a man protects your peace, he also respects your boundaries. He doesn't push when you say no. He doesn't guilt you for needing space. He doesn't make you feel selfish for choosing yourself. He understands that a woman who feels emotionally safe is a woman who stays not because she's trapped, but because she's valued. And here's something important: protecting your peace doesn't mean he never upsets you. It means he cares when he does. It means he notices when you withdraw. It means he checks in instead of ignoring it. It means he takes responsibility for repairing what he disrupted. A man who isn't serious will tell you to calm down. A man who is serious will ask, "What can I do to make this better?" That difference changes everything. If a man consistently chooses his ego over your peace, the relationship becomes exhausting. You start losing yourself just to keep things smooth. You start prioritizing harmony over honesty. And over time, you grow distant not because you stop caring, but because you're tired of being hurt. A serious man understands that protecting your peace is not about controlling you. It's about creating an environment where love can breathe. And when your peace matters to him, you feel it in your body. You relax, you soften, you stop bracing for impact. That's the power of a man who chooses connection over ego. He moves forward, not in circle. This is the final proof of seriousness, because movement reveals intention better than words ever could. When a man is serious about you, the relationship does not stay stuck in the same emotional place month after month, year after year. There is direction. There is progression. There is a sense that something is being built instead of endlessly discussed. Forward motion doesn't mean rushing, but it does mean clarity. It means you're not reliving the same conversations with different dates on the calendar. A man who isn't serious keeps you in circles. The same promises, the same explanations, the same justifications. He talks about the future without actually stepping into it. He says he wants more, but nothing changes. And slowly you begin to realize that the relationship feels busy, but not productive. Emotional motion without emotional growth. A serious man doesn't confuse patience with postponement. He understands that waiting without progress is draining. He doesn't keep you in emotional limbo while he figures himself out at your expense. He knows that time is valuable, and if he's asking for yours, he respects it enough to move with purpose. Moving forward shows up in actions, not timelines. It shows up in deeper conversations, clearer plans, stronger effort, and increased responsibility. You don't have to drag him toward the next step. You don't have to push, hint, or apply pressure. A serious man applies pressure to himself. He checks in with where things are going. He asks real questions about the future. He makes decisions that reflect long-term thinking, not short-term comfort. A man who moves in circles avoids commitment without saying no outright. He keeps things vague so he doesn't have to choose. He benefits from your presence while delaying clarity. And over time, that kind of stagnation begins to feel like self-betrayal. You stay because you care, but you feel yourself slowly shrinking, adjusting your expectations, telling yourself to be patient just a little longer. A serious man doesn't need ultimatums to move forward. He doesn't wait until you're emotionally exhausted to step up. He notices when things feel stuck and does something about it. He understands that momentum keeps love alive while stagnation kills it quietly. Forward movement also means growth in emotional depth. You feel closer, not just familiar. You feel chosen, not tolerated. The connection becomes more solid, not more confusing. You stop questioning where you stand because his actions answer that for you. If you feel like you're constantly circling the same doubts, the same frustrations, the same unanswered questions, that's not a phase. That's a pattern. And patterns tell the truth people won't say out loud. A man who is serious doesn't let patterns of uncertainty form. He interrupts them with clarity. Here's the hard truth many women avoid. Staying in circles feels safer than facing the possibility that he won't move forward at all. But safety that costs you your future is not safety. It's delay. A serious man doesn't ask you to pause your life indefinitely while he decides if he's ready. When a man moves forward, you feel alignment. You feel momentum. You feel